Hello, everyone. Hello and welcome. It's such a pleasure to be here with you at the Arc. My name is Nic Gareiss, and I've been dancing at the Arc since I was about maybe 10 years old. It makes it such a joy and even more special to be sharing with you and being with you as an Arc audience here from my home in Lansing, Michigan, which is the ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe people. My friend Ty Defoe reminds me that we say that to bless the land itself and also to remember the original and the continued inhabitants of this place who are Anishinaabe folks. So I just want to mark that and share that and say that it's the remarkable thing about this whole thing is that we're all here on a Wednesday, here on Facebook, here at the Arc. This is the party, if you will. Welcome to the party, everyone. If you're at a party, people are usually milling about, hanging onto glasses, chatting. And if a body is going to dance, they need to claim some space. And so I am claiming this space for all of us. And the way that happens might happen at a party, especially if you were in Ireland, is a lead around, where a dancer might make a circle, inscribe a circle on the floor, and this is for a number of reasons. It tells folks that they're about to do something, that something is about to happen, and also for the practical reason of maybe literally moving people out of the space where the dancer is about to do their thing. My Irish Seanos dancing teacher, Joseph O'Neill in Galway, always begins and ends his dances with the lead around. And it's always clockwise. In Irish culture, there's a lot of thought put into the idea that if you move around to the right sunwise, that brings you good fortune and good luck. In fact, there's a word for that in the Irish language that my friend Cuivine O'Reilly shared with me. It's called deishel. So here's hoping that some of that good luck and good fortune rubs off, and I want to share some of that with you, and hopefully there's some of it here tonight. And this is a little lead around that I'll do to get us started, to get this party begun with us together. Farewell, Angelina, the bells of the crown are being stolen by bandits, I'm follow sound. The triangle tingles and the trumpets play slow. Farewell, Angelina, the sky's on fire and I must go. There's no need for anger, there's no need for blame. There's nothing to prove, everything's still the same. Just a table standing empty by the edge of the sea. There's farewell, Angelina, the sky is trembling and I must leave. The jacks and queens have forsaken the courtyard, and 52 travelers now file past the guard. In the space where the deuce and the ace once ran wild. Farewell, Angelina, the sky is folding, I'll see you in a while. See the cross-eyed pirates sit perched in the sun, shooting tin cans with a sawed-off shotgun. And the neighbors, they clap and they cheer with each blast. Farewell, Angelina, the sky's changing colors and I must leave fast. King Kong, little elves on the rooftops, they dance. Valentino type tangos while they take up men's hands. Shut the eyes of the dead, not to embarrass anyone. Farewell, Angelina, the sky is embarrassed and I must be gone. That's when you go woo, everybody. It's okay to go woo. Whenever you maybe feel or see or hear something that gives you a little bit of tingle or makes you want to sit up in your seat or look closer to the screen, that's when you can go woo. And if woo feels like too much of a stretch, you can also say hop. It's a nice conservative option. Or if you're feeling really generous, you can say up Lansing or up Michigan, which is where I am right now. Or maybe there in your family room you'll make a sound that nobody has ever made before, and that would also be totally great. So I welcome your noises of pleasure into this space. The machine guns are our hand and the trumpets heave rocks, and the fiends nail time bombs to the hands of the clocks. Shut the eyes of the dead, not to embarrass anyone. Call me any name you like, I will never deny. Farewell, Angelina, the sky is folding, the sky is erupting, and the sky is on fire. I must go where it's quiet. Thank you, everybody. That, of course, is Farewell, Angelina, written by Bob Dylan. And it's so great to be at the Ark, which has been a home, I know, for many, many years, decades in fact, of music as a site of resistance. Whether that's resistance for workers' rights, for women's rights, for racial justice, or LGBTQ rights. And that song, even though it was written in 1965, it still feels relevant. maybe that's the key to writing a political song or a song about politics that will stand the test of time, is to give you the feeling of resistance and to remind us of the continued use of the authoritarian power to desubjugate us. This next song, it follows in that same tradition, though it's a traditional song. It was collected in 1904 in Somerset in England from a man named Harry Richards by the collector Cecil Sharp. And it's a song called In the Heat of the Day. Earlier in the pandemic, I recorded this song and 4 other little queer folk songs because I learned that my local LGBTQ center was at risk of losing its funding and also losing its building because of the pandemic. So we all rallied. They have a GoFundMe you can check out. The center is called the Salas Center, and check them out. I can't say enough good things about the Salas Center. They provide clothing for trans people. They host a weekly LGBTQ youth support group. And earlier in the pandemic, they connected me with some queer affirming medical care. So I'm really, really grateful to them and recorded these songs as a benefit. Every penny goes to the Salas Center, these 5 little queer folk songs. The project is named Portmanteau, which, as you probably know, is a bringing together of things, a collapsing of a binary. And I suppose in my case, it's a collapsing of my musical life as a dancer and a musician. A portmanteau is also something that you use to hold things in, to carry things in. And I've carried these 5 songs around for many years, usually only singing them after late nights of dancing and fiddle tunes until now. And so you can find Portmanteau on Bandcamp. You can also donate to the Salas Center's GoFundMe. This is In the Heat of the Day. The song is pretty queer already. It switches narrators' voices halfway through in about the 2nd or 3rd verse. But in the spirit of that inclusivity tonight, and of also the reminder of the fact that there have been queer people throughout history, as long as there have been people, and also the fact that there are queer people in many, many industries, including in the song, there are sailors that are speaking to each other. I've switched the pronouns, so you'll hear that. This is In the Heat of the Day. In the heat of the day, when the sun shines so freely, I met Master Kilby, so fine and so gay. Took off my hat and I bowed to the ground. I said, Master Kilby, oh, where are you bound? Bound for the west, in hopes to find rest in the arms of my dear Billy. I'll build a new nest. He's the one I adore, he's the choice of my heart. His skin shines like silver in every part. And if I were the master of 10,000 pounds in bright gold and silver, or on King William's crowns, I'd part with it all with my own heart so freely. It's It's all for the sake of my charming Billy. Dee-dee-dam, day, dee-dum-dee-da. Dee-dee-dam, day, dee-dum-dee-da. Dee-dee-dam, day, dee-dum-dee-da. Dee-dee-dam, day, dee-dum-dee-da. Gave him some kisses down by the seashore. Still he lay asking for more. Dee-dum, day, dee-dum-dee-da. Dee-dum, day, dee-dum, day-da. Dee-dum-dee-da. Dee-dum, day, dee-dum-dee-da. Thank you. I want to introduce to you my first collaborator of the evening. His name is Patrick Bonner, and he's a fiddle player who was born on Beaver Island, Michigan, a Michigan fiddle player, born in 1882, and you're hearing him play right now. Patrick Bonner was born to two Irish immigrants from Donegal in Ireland, and he grew up listening to fiddle music and singing in his community in Beaver Island. There's a story about him sneaking out of his bed at night, going to peek into the dance where a fiddle player was playing solo for a group of dancers. And he was recorded by Alan Lomax and Ivan Walton in 1938, so you'll hear that in these old recordings, very early recordings. As I started to become more familiar with Patrick Bonner's music, actually only pretty recently, I started to think about the ways that I could maybe have an intimate or even queer relationship with this kind of ghost of a fiddle player across time. Thinking especially about his dancing bow arm informing my sounding feet. So hopefully you hear that in these next few tunes. You'll hear him play and sing. This is Callahan's Reel.
I will sing you a ditty without much delay of the dear little lassie whom my heart stole away. She's a blacksmith's daughter on Flat River side, and I always intended to make her my bride. I have worked on Flat River, I earned quite a stake. Steadfastly and steady, I never played the rake. I'm the boy who stand ready on the wide rolling stream. My thoughts were of Anna who haunted my dreams. I had dressed her in jewels and the finest of lace, of silks and of satins her form did embrace. I gave her my wages, herself to keep safe, and begrudged her of nothing I had on this earth. To her mother, Jane Tucker, I lay all the blame, for to cause her to leave me and blacken my name, for to throw off those ribbons that God would soon tie, and to leave me a wandering till the day that I die.
Thank you, everybody. That is my second collaborator of the evening. Her name is Alison de Groot from Winnipeg, Manitoba. And you might know her from her collaborations with Bruce Molsky and Molsky's Mountain Drifters, or from her great band, the Goodbye Girls, or her project with Tatiana Hargraves. And Alison and I work as a duo usually in the pre-pandemic times, and that's a tune that we do together. That tune is called Last Chance. And I actually have been dancing that tune. My first ever gig happened when I was maybe about 9-10 years old in an apple orchard near my house in west of Mount Pleasant, the Macintosh Apple Orchard. Some musicians, David Leonard and Marty Abbott and Mark Bonner, invited me to come dance with them. So I brought my little board and plenty of warm clothes, and that tune was in the repertoire of David Leonard, especially the clawhammer banjo player, in that little combo that day. And so when Alison and I were talking about that tune, the physical history of that tune it evoked some kind of interesting stuff in my body. And I wondered if I could actually evoke the tune, if I could sort of play the tune without the melody at first. So that's what Alison and I usually try and do in our shows. And I see Alison in the chat there. We both can't wait to get back out and to make music and movement for you. I'll sing you a song about dancers. This is a song about dance, and also about embodied labor, about the kinds of labor that women and queer people and trans people often find ourselves in. The song has an opening line which is totally hooked me the first time I heard it. It says, "The night came undone like a party dress." And then you wonder, like, what are the implications of that? This song, what I take away from this song, it's a song by Gillian Welch. It's called Barroom Girls. And what this song makes me think about is that work is work, and that all workers need protections, even if someone's work has been deemed less than. I think because of the fact that workers along many industries do things with our bodies, whether those are teachers or musicians or dancers, people who work in restaurants, because, or especially servers, people who use their bodies to provide a service. Sometimes we're at great risk of exploitation because there isn't a physical product that we're producing. And it's very interesting to me that dancers, for example, at least in the United States, freelance dancers don't have a union. And there's one that's just starting now called DANC, the Dance Artist National Collective. If you're a freelance dancer, I encourage you to check them out. And this song, I think, reminds us that workers need protections. And that whether that labor occurs in a dance studio or in a bar room. This is called Barroom Girls. Well, the night came undone like a party dress and fell at her feet in a beautiful mess. The smoke and the whiskey came home in her curls, and it crept through the dreams of the barroom. Well, she tosses and turns, 'cause the sun is unkind, and the heat of the day is coming in through the blinds. Leave all the blue skies to the rest of the world, 'cause the neon is shining for the barroom. Oh, barroom girls, go by your side like the ponies that pass on a carousel ride. All of the colors go round in this world when you dance in the arms of the barroom. Well, she rolls to her feet, 'cause she can't sleep no more, and she looks at her clothes lying there on the floor. The last night's spangles and yesterday's pearls, and the bright morning stars for the barroom. Oh, barroom girls, go by your side like the ponies that pass on a carousel ride. All of those colors go round in this world when you dance in the arms of the barroom. All of those colors go round in a swirl when you dance in the arms of the barroom girls. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, thank you. Well, as you can see, the chat window is on fire. Feel free to chime in there in the comments, ask questions, heckle. And I just want to say one of my favorite things about the ARC actually is the chance to hang out and sort of connect with performers face to face. I miss that on both sides of that as a performer who's in the audience, a performer that's on the stage. And so we're going to stick around after this, and there'll be a little time to answer some questions in the chat window. So if you've got questions, you can put them in the chat at the end, and I'll try and connect with you. I'll sing you one last little song and before we get back on the feet, and I couldn't resist singing a ghost song for you. This time of year in Michigan, everything that's alive is pulling up into itself, and nostalgia is in the air everywhere. And across many, many different cultures, this is a time of year when the space between the real and the imagined, and the living and the non-living, and what's permitted and what's forbidden are all very thin. So I'm just reveling in that at this time of year here in Lansing. And this is a song that talks about that. It's a ghost story. It begins with a voice from the other side of a bedroom door. And the person who's asleep is awoken by this voice, and they have a conversation through the door, and eventually the voice reveals that it's the person's lover. So she opens the door, she puts on a cloak that's colored green, and some ethnomusicologists think that this green, the word green or the color green in a lot of these ballads signifies some kind of supernatural occurrence. It's sort of a cue for the listener. So they walk out through the autumn night, and he takes her to the churchyard where he's resting, and they spend the evening there for one last time. And then the sun starts to come up, and she has to go home, and he has to leave. It's called Sweet William's Ghost. It appears in a lot of different ballad collections. There's another version of it called Lady Margaret. And this song was collected in 1927. And between 1910 and 1929, Maud Carplace, who was a collector, who was a colleague of Cecil Sharp's, and accompanied him on his collecting missions in the United States and in England. She went to Newfoundland solo, and she collected this song. And I think Maud Carplace doesn't get credit enough for the arduous work of collecting and traveling around, speaking to people and making us preserving and recording a lot of this music. Yeah, so this is Sweet William's Ghost as collected by Maud Carplace. There came a ghost to Margaret's door with many a grievous groan, and then he's twirled long at the pin, but answer she gave none. Is it my father Philip, or yet my brother John, or yet my own dear William, from Scotland now come home? My faith and troth you'll never get, and me you'll never win, till you take me to yon churchyard and wed me with a ring. Oh, I do dwell in a churchyard, but far beyond the sea, and it is but my ghost, Margaret, that speaks now unto thee. So she's put on her robes of green, with peace below the knee, and through the livelong winter's night, the sweet ghost followed she. Oh, is there room at your head, Willie, or room there at your feet? Oh, room here at your side, Willie, There's no room at my head, Margaret. There's no room at my feet. There's no room at my side, Margaret. My coffin is so neat. Then up and spoke the red robin, and up and spoke the gray. 'Tis time, my dear Margaret, that I were gone away. No more the ghost to Margaret came, with many a grievous groan. He's vanished out into the mist, and left her there alone. Stay, my own true love, stay, my heart you do divide. Pale grew her cheeks, she closed her eyes, stretched out her limbs and cried. I could sleep, I could sleep, I could sleep, I could sleep. When I lived alone, is there a ghost in my house? When I lived alone, is there a ghost in my house, in my house? Thank you, everybody. So I'll get back on the feet here, and I just want to say a great big thank you to the ARC. I have about 3 little dance pieces left for you in our last little bit of the performance before we do some chatting. And I want to note the fact that the ARC has really been a home for traditional artists. It's been a home for me. It's a place that I've looked forward to coming back to and dancing at time and time again. So I just want to say a great big thank you to them. And your support right now, this show is free, but your contributions are very, very welcome through the virtual tip jar and also through the Venmo that you can see. And those contributions are keeping the lights on at places like the ARC, which for many, many decades have been a home for independent artists like myself. And in addition, your contributions are keeping independent artists themselves fed and housed. And I just want to say thank you for that. I've been very moved by folks' generosity. So thank you again for those contributions. I had the great pleasure of spending 9 months at the University of Edinburgh last year. And there I was working with dancers and digging into the School of Scottish Studies, working at the Moray House School of Education and at the Traditional Dance Forum of Scotland. And I was researching the historical precedents and the current scene of step dance in Scotland, which has both a rich historical tradition and also a vibrant resurgence that's happening right now. And it was really special to be a part of just that for 9 months, to be there, be present with the people who are making it happen. I see some of those people in the chat, and it's great. You're all very late, but thank you for staying up and listening and watching the show. Sometimes when we think about percussive dance, maybe like the styles you've seen me engage tonight, I'm a dancer who's very interested in intersections and also interstices, the way things come together and the way that they don't touch each other. So across many traditions, Irish step dancing, step dance from Canada, many of those Canadian step dance styles, and Appalachian music and dance. And maybe we think about those styles have gotten more airtime in terms of percussive dance history. And instead, I just say this word out loud and also remind us of the historical word of treepling. which is the indigenous Scottish word for this rhythmic impulse that we have across many continents. It's amazing. Every inhabited continent has people who have ingeniously crafted a tradition where you make sound with your lower extremities. And in Scotland, that's called treepling. And there's actually some research done about this. Joan and Tom Flett wrote a book called Traditional Dance in Scotland, where they talk about the art of treepling. And so I made a show in response to that chapter, imagining the creative potential for treepling, digging in historically what it could have been, and also thinking about the way it can be used for new creative adventures across music and dance. So as I was making the show, though, I was thinking about why is it that we do this? What is this human thing about that we make sound with our feet? So I made this piece. It's called Why Treeple? And it strives to answer that question, or at least dig into the question itself. Why treeple? To answer this, I think we have to imagine a time when we had a very different relationship with the southern hemisphere of our bodies. A time of French courts and dancing masters. A time of well-turned ankles and shapely calves. A time of Louis XIV in Versailles. Jeremiah Mulleno in North Kerry, Andrew Cochrane in West Berwickshire, and William Henry Lane in Brooklyn. So much of the writing about dance in the 18th and 19th centuries concerns our lower halves. Maybe our feet didn't seem so far away in previous times. But why treeple? Why not just step? Well, for one, treepling saves energy. Fewer weight changes, smaller muscle groups, maximizing the potential for ease and pleasure, dispersing the labor of sound making across different parts of the foot. More than a single stamp, but a treble, a flatter, a double treble, triple treeple. Endless, minute rhythmic gestures of infinite mathematical permutation. But maybe more than the joy of this seemingly endless combination of steps, the art of treepling could be said to be the bridge between dance and music. Rather than bodies bounding across the floor devouring space, treepling, like the piper's fingers on the chanter, or the fiddler's digits on the neck, enacts reflexive relations with the surface, bridging sight, sound, and touch. We touch the floor. We touch time. We touch the music. We touch the Laird of Drumglare and Jenny Dang the Weaver. Thank you, everyone. Well, this was the party. Thank you for coming to the party, everyone. It wouldn't have been much of a party at all without the ARC, and especially without Emily Ross, who's been running the tech and has been available for all kinds of inquiries about mics and webcams and table lamps. Every table lamp in my house is on the other side of my laptop there right now. So big thanks to the ARC and to Emily. It wouldn't also have been much of a party without Mike Green and Laurel Midland, who do so much work to make this possible. Thank you both. And it wouldn't have been a party at all without you. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for your generous contributions via the tip jar and through the Venmo. And it wouldn't have been a party at all without D. Ray White, who's the last dancer we'll talk about tonight. The last ghost I want to invoke. D. Ray White, born in 1927 in Boone County, West Virginia. Amazing dancer who often danced to instrumental music, but also to hand pattern and talking blues. This is his version of Get Along Home. And I hope you are home and safe, and I hope I get to come see you all soon. But until then, this is your last chance to go woo. Wish I was an apple hanging on a tree, and every time that you pass, you take a bite with me. Get along home. Get along home. Get along home. I'm gonna leave you soon. Wish I was an apple hanging on a tree, and every time that you pass, you get away with me. Get along home. Get along home. Get along home. I'm gonna leave you soon. Wish I was an apple hanging on that tree. Every time that you pass, you get a bite of me. Get along home. Get along home. Get along home. I'm gonna leave you soon. It's from D. Ray White. Get along home. Get along home. Get along home. I'm gonna leave you soon. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So don't miss tomorrow's Family Room show at the Ark, the Judy Baker Band. And that's tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. And so now let's all head to the lobby. We're in the lobby now. We can say hello. We've dried the sweat off ourselves, wiped off the knee sweat. And so if there are things you all want to talk about, I'm happy to hang and chat for a bit. Such nice, great comment about D. Ray White featured along several other dancers in Talking Feet. Thank you, Heath. Yes, that is one of my sources for D. Ray White for that tune, and you can see D. Ray playing that tune, dancing that tune in Talking Feet. So nice. Thanks everybody for coming along, and thanks for the chat. Thanks for your kind words. Nice to see you all. Nice to see some great friendly faces from near and far. Friendly names from near and far. Big hello to Aberdeen, Scotland, to Jennifer, and to Maine, to Bethany Wakeman. Big hello to Bob Pillsbury. Great to see you. Ann Connors, Judy Sports, Lindsay Terrell, Megan. Great. Lovely to see you all. So while we're maybe getting ready for some Q&A, I also have to say that my face hurts a little bit because I just got some great news. The first round of nominations for the Grammy Awards has just come out, and there's some great first round nominees, including a record that I danced on from Jake Blunt called Spider Tales, and it's nominated for Best American Folk Album and Best Roots Performance. So if you are a voting Academy member, please consider listening to Jake Blunt's record, Spider Tales. Have a great question here from Kathy Fletcher. When I was learning how to do those spins, did you ever fall? I don't think I've fallen, Kathy, when I was doing a turn, but I definitely have a propensity, as you probably know, to turn one direction. And so one of my pandemic projects is to turn the other direction. I'm left-handed but right-footed, so my body likes to move that direction. So I'm trying to lead with my left side. Oh, hello from Winfield. Wow, I wish I had. Yeah, gosh, it'd be great to be back at Winfield. Love that. A question from Jane. Can you demonstrate or discuss Sean-Nós dancing versus formal Irish dancing? Interesting. So I was really lucky when I was a student at the University of Limerick. This is for Jane. To study with both Sean-Nós dancers and contemporary Irish dancers. And for me, it's maybe less about the style or the genre that a person comes from and more about the person's interaction or dialogue with that genre. And so I got to work with two amazing artists, Seosamh Fionnuachtain, who's a Sean-Nós dancer, and Colin Dunn, who's an Irish step dancer, a champion Irish step dancer, who you might be familiar with from his work in commercial Irish dancing shows, but then his later work in his own creations, his own solo performances. Seosamh Fionnuachtain has danced all over the world, and he is from Spiddal in Galway, which is an Irish language Gaeltacht area. And so the insights that were coming from both of these people were in some ways really different, and then in some ways quite similar. And I feel really lucky to be able to, as an outsider, to come at Irish dance from maybe both of those perspectives. And so the dancing that I learned from Seosamh it was just more about a style of improvisation. I was learning how the way he thinks about thinking about dancing the melody of the tune specifically. The idea of dancing the tune, which I often talk about, originally comes from him. He's the one that said this to me. So he has a melody in his head when he's dancing, even if there's no music. as you've seen in her tonight, that's been a big influence in my own dancing. So I'm a dancer it's very hard for me to remember a series of steps, but it's a lot easier for me to remember a melody. I can remember, for example, a jig, much more than I can remember hop shuffle, step toe heel, hop shuffle. So that was maybe what I learned from Joseph, and from Colin, it was really about like trying to think about improvisation, about trying to think about exploring large ideas through dance. I made a 20-minute solo that Colin helped supervise, and later he and I worked together when I made my solo show, Solo Square Dance. So Colin's work uses the body to explore ideas, maybe asking questions more than providing answers, and I think that's a really cool thing, a hallmark of his work. He has a show about, it's called Out of Time, which explores the idea of time in percussive dance through many, many facets, through his own archive, his background as a dancer, and also what it means. He asked himself the question, is there space for time in Irish dancing itself as a genre? And so he works a lot with delays and with looping and with these things. It maybe sounds a bit silly just to say them, but he spent many, many years diving deep into that work. So I really admire him and his exploration, not just of time, but of movement and of release. So those are my two step dance, or Irish dance people that I study with, at least at the University of Limerick. Over the years, I've had a chance to study with other dancers. For example, there's another genre called old style step dance, which is from Munster. And I had a chance to study with a protege of Joe O'Donovan named Patrick O'Day many, many years ago in Detroit. So those are some of my experiences with Irish dance. Question from the Percussive Dance Preservation Project. Hello, Percussive Dance Preservation Project. Great organization in DC, which is working so hard to create opportunities, even in this pandemic, for percussive dancers across many genres, and doing it in such an equitable way. Thank you, Percussive Dance Preservation Project. Can you talk about how you structure your improv-ography, okay? And how you decide how much to set and how much freedom to allow in making a new piece? Yes, that word, I love that word, stolen from tap dance. So yeah, for me, I'm thinking about, yes. Oh good, another question about time signature. Yes, so in terms of improvisations, as you see, I am engaged in improvisation quite a bit. And a lot of times those improvisations are connected to, as I mentioned, a melody. And the melody itself is the thing that sort of like guides my improvisation in a lot of ways. But as we know, if you're familiar with fiddle music, as I know some Percussive Dance Preservation Project folks are, there's this kind of improvisation inbuilt in a lot of the melodies. If you're thinking about American old-time music or Canadian fiddle music or even music from Ireland and Scotland, there's a practice of the melody itself, but then extemporizing on the melody. So it isn't maybe leaving the melody behind, playing over the chord changes, maybe like in other forms, but instead it's using the melody as a sort of chassis for improvisation inside that structure. So that for me is where that takes place. There was a time when I was making Art of Tripling, for example, when I basically had to decide not to make any more tunes that were based on melodies because they kept showing up, because these are the things that I have kind of in my head all the time when I'm walking around, and in my body, because my head is my body all the time. So when I was making Art of Tripling, I had to start thinking about other things, maybe other questions, socio-political questions, or the idea of time signatures. There's a piece that rolls through different time signatures. In tonight's performance, for example, the Bonner pieces have several, I like to think about them as like pins. They're like places that I can hop to. And in between, the 8th, 16th, and 32nd notes are filled in. So for example, in Callahan's reel, there's always that pullback motif to the side. It's like this. So he plays an ornament. This is Patrick Bonner, and he goes, but the diggy 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 down, that kind of it makes its way out of my bones, maybe a lot of different times every night, but this motif stays the same. So that's an example of that maybe from tonight's performances. Cool question from Heath. I will, yes. And favorite time signature from Jen Oak to dancing. Love big threes, love threes. I think I find a lot of space in those. So whether that's a 3-4 or 6-8, 9-8 or 3-2, that side or that spectrum of meters, that's my favorite place to be, rhythmically speaking. And that doesn't just happen in the forms that I practice. It happens, for example, that 3-centric meter happens in Swedish music and dance. I remember Alistair Fraser asking my friend Petter Berndalen in This Is How We Fly one time, how can you live in a world of 3? And of course, Petter's answer is that, yes, in the world of 3, there are many, many numbers as well. So I like that. And something about the idea of the fact that we have 2 feet and we're trying to use those 2 feet to create a 3-bass meter, the challenge of that and the tension created by that, I think I really enjoy. Question from Heath about the role of arms. Thanks, Percussive Dance Preservation Project. Yes, lots of pullbacks in tonight's show. It's one of the few ornaments that I can kind of, in this space, because it's so small, and because the floor, I'm trying to work with the floor, it's one of the ornaments that I find works in this space. That's been one of the challenges of adapting to this pandemic. This is my primary rehearsal and performance space right now. Talk about living at work. Good question from Jen too. But he talked about the role of the hands, arms varies in different percussive dance styles. Yeah, so you might be familiar with different percussive dance traditions which engage arms in different ways and engage the hands in different ways. So, for example, in some traditions, the arms are not held, but are allowed to flow and respond to what's happening in the lower body. And again, thinking about the 18th and 19th century, when a lot of these dance forms emerged, the focus in terms of being a dancer, I think in a lot of ways, this is a historical argument that needs to have more research. But as far as I can tell, a lot of that historical writing had to do with our feet. And when you think about, when you look at the accounts of people dancing, it's kind of foot-centric. So there isn't too much to do with that in the early writing, and then that starts to kind of move in later. Part of that has to do with a nationalist project. There are accounts of people dancing, holding their arms up in a way that the authors might deem less than respectable. And in the 19th century, respectability through cultural forms was where it was at. People were really trying to assert their unique national identity with the emergence of nation states in Europe. And part of that had to do with a dignifying project, especially if you were a post-colonial state. So, for example, in Ireland, if your colonizers are the most civilized people in the world, you have to think really carefully about the way that your dancing is being observed. And I think in a lot of ways, when we think about Irish dancing and the fact that the arms are quiet compared perhaps to what's happening, the energy is directed towards the lower parts of the body. A lot of that has to do with presenting a civilized version of Ireland, a sense of comportment, of decorum, and a sense of maybe showing your colonizers that you are just as civilized as them. And that can be a really intense project in terms of the trajectory of a dance style. It can take its toll on a form and on a people. So anyway, that's the research that I've done, or what I've learned about arms. For me, I know that my impulse is to engage with my arms a little bit as I move through different traditions, and it's different in different practices. For example, there are certain things in team clogging, which emerged in the 1970s, actually emerged before that, but the style that I grew up in emerged in the 1970s with the greengrass cloggers. There's actually like this sort of physical homogenization that happens where a lot of dancers, and maybe if there's other team cloggers in the room, you can disagree with me, but in the group that I was involved with, Footwork's Percussive Dance Ensemble, there was a push to release the arms backwards when doing the basic step. And this might be unique to the company that I was with. So there's this swing back. And it's so funny when I look at footage of the company, there's a lot of this physicality is mirrored across many, many, many different dancers. So that's, I think, an interesting thing, especially if you're in the room with dancers for a long time, and that sort of physicality rubs off. Question from Jen about getting stuck in a motif. Yes, totally. The one that I'll just show you. The one that I get stuck in the most is this roll through a jig. So it's a hop shuffle and then a brush down, or rolling through with that kind of roll. Yeah, it can be easy to get stuck because it feels so good, and the feedback that you're getting from the floor and the proprioception of your own body can just make, it can feel like this cycle that you can't get out of. And so then I think we have to be a little bit creative and find other ways to get outside of that, whether that's thinking about a drastic shift in timbre, for example, in the color of the sound we're making, or even a physical shift. Like I know that if I'm doing that motif, if I step out, I actually can't do that motif as smoothly, so my body responds to do something else. So you can use chance and gravity in that way to say, oh no, I'm going to get out of that motif. But sometimes it can feel really good to get stuck. Lisa, good question about, okay, saw those one-footed wings too. Good question about the work of Bill Robinson. Yeah, I love Bill Robinson's dancing so much, and I think Bill Robinson, he's really credited as a great innovator in the field of tap dance. I think a lot of Bill Robinson's work would have come out of a time when some people might have called that form buck and wing, when it was a part of American minstrelsy, where both white and black performers would perform caricatures, hateful caricatures, that continue white supremacist notions in minstrelsy. So Bill Robinson, I think Bill Robinson transcends that because of his utter genius and his technical facility. And we see that in his work breaking all kinds of barriers. For example, first, interracial dance partnership with Shirley Temple. Actually, there's no quotes. It was the first interracial dance partnership. Even the idea of physical contact between people of different racial backgrounds. Very, very important work that Bill Robinson did, even when he wasn't being recognized or credited to it. And I actually don't think he's received enough credit even to this day. Bill Robinson also, some of the footwork that he does feels quite lifted. And I think that there's a time when dancers of many, many backgrounds would have been part of this showbiz culture. I'm thinking about dancers from the Appalachian region, dancers from Irish backgrounds. This showbiz culture, I think, actually leads in and also is influenced and influences a lot of the traditions that happened in rural spaces as well. I didn't think that was the case until quite recently, and doing some more reading and thinking about that. So yeah, I would say big homage to Bill Robinson. Also in terms of the clarity, I find the adroitness of his work so beautiful. It's so cogent, and I just feel really inspired by that. And I know Caleb feels the same way. I work with Caleb Teicher, who's a tap dancer, swing dancer, percussive dancer who works across many mediums and creates beautiful, beautiful productions. And we have an improvisational duo show, and in some ways that's physically where some of those questions are connecting. Not necessarily in an ethnological way. I don't think we're trying to find missing links. I think we're trying to have an encounter that's as authentic as possible. And I say that word even with quotation marks, but we're trying to respond to each other. Maybe empathic is a better word than authentic. I'm trying to respond to him from his particular background. He's trying to respond to me in the same way. And that show involves leather-soled shoes, so that creates a different kind of sonic landscape. It involves singing, and I feel really grateful to get to work with Caleb. Yeah, thank you so much for all these questions. Maybe time for one more, and then we'll call it a night. It's so nice to be in the ARC lobby with you all and have all these discussions about dance. Thanks to the ARC for including dance and for including all kinds of incredible work that's being presented at the ARC. Good question from Jen. In all of your travels and studies, is there a particular style, technique, or artist that you feel has influenced or impacted you on the most? It's definitely a tradition, as my teachers have said, and especially Colin Dunn says, a tradition is a bunch of people. So I can think of a couple people that I'll share with. I think about Sandy Silva, amazing percussive dancer. I was familiar with her work more beginning with Open House, her solo work in a show called My Dance, and Apartment 21, and then her work with La Bottine Souriant, and now her work in the Migrations Film Project. You can check out Sandy Silva's amazing work using body music, contact in the body, and she's originated the technique all her own that draws upon ham bone. It draws on stepping. She's greatly influenced by John D. Holman, who was a black buck dancer and ham bone artist, also blues musician from the North Carolina Piedmont. She's also influenced by flamenco and Hungarian Laganesh, and so Sandy Silva for sure. Another person that I feel like is big influence on me is Colin Dunn, incredible artist based in Limerick, Ireland, who makes solo productions exploring different ideas, and he's created a few shows recently. He's created Out of Time. His most recent solo show is called Concert, which works with old recordings. So certainly my work with Patrick Bonner is influenced by Colin's work in engaging with a fiddle player named Tommy Potts from Ireland. And he just does amazing things. I never don't want to watch him dance. And a third dancer that I'll say, there's so many in this dance family. A third dancer is a dancer named Ira Bernstein, who early on was one of the first dancers I saw who did solo percussive dances from rural spaces. And I saw a performance he gave when I was 8 years old, sitting on the floor, kind of like this, in a rickety dance pavilion in a rainy Memorial Day weekend in late May in Michigan, and just was totally awestruck. His dancing does that. It invokes, to quote Helen Brennan, who's an Irish dance writer, his dancing invites wonder and respect. His sheer technical facility, and also the deep love that he has for his mentors, that's definitely made a big impression on me. This love that he has for the people who taught him, many of whom are some of the luminary figures of percussive dance of the 20th and 21st centuries. So we're really, really lucky. I feel really lucky to have experienced Ira's work, and I'm thinking about him a lot right now. Definitely Joseph Onyatin, big influence as well. Big fan. Lots and lots of dancers along these lines. Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate being able to have chats with you all. Big thanks to the ARC and to Emily Ross, and thanks again for your contributions and for your contributions through both the tip jar and through just your engagement with questions and your attention and energy. It's made an impact, so thank you very much. Hope to see you all very soon. Please stay safe, take care, and hope to see you at the ARC again soon. Bye-bye now. Good night.